Good evening and welcome back to a Thursday night live episode of Red Tinted Glasses. Callum is in the co-host seat. He's given up packing up the flat because Barry Robson could be quickly packing up his office at Cormack Park if things don't improve. Despite John Beaton's man of the match performance yesterday, he couldn't help Aberdeen get anything other than a 1-1 draw at St Johnstone, as it feels like 2 points dropped. Callum, you were there, Callum. It was an below par, maybe that's a bit of an understatement in terms of performance, but being there, could you maybe sum up the mood at full time for those of us not, or I was going to say not lucky enough to be in the stands, but it feels rather fortunate not to have been in the stands last night and watching that?
It was interesting. There was some applause mixed with some boos, and I'd say it was actually probably pretty even. I feel like a lot of the applause was probably, a lot of it was for Bojan Miovski, admittedly. It seemed like I was in the boo brigade, however, particularly fucked off at a certain few individuals that we'll get into later on. And I don't think Barry Robson came anywhere near the away end either. Sort of shirked away, it seemed. I couldn't even see him. I think he was quickly down the tunnel, which is no real surprise. It's just a shame he wasn't climbing over any advertising boards. That's sort of how I feel. And no amount of My Chemical Romance or any other pop punk on the way up the road could improve my mood. In fact, very fitting. I felt put on the goth tunes and just that sort of summed things up. I don't think we can sum it up better than that, really. Goth tunes on the way up the road.
Very depressing. Or as Paul Donaldson says, to use the phrase of the week, for those of you that have been tuning into the news, of course, relating to Nicola Sturgeon and Jason Leach, a complacent abomination of a performance last night. I think that kind of hits the nail on the head. And for those that have been tuning into Traitors, Barry Robson could very quickly be facing the round table and potential banishment if these performances don't improve anytime soon. But he stuck faith with the team from the last two outings, both against Ross County and Clyde, naming an unchanged 11. But Callum, the problems really from Friday night's game against Clyde, where we lacked width and any sort of kind of directness, I think we discussed in the review, reared their ugly heads again, despite a positive opening 5-10 minutes. We quickly faded away into our shells, and a few players who have been kind of square pegs into round holes kind of showed them. I'm looking at Dante Polvara in particular, for me, stood out as a player quite lax in possession. I know you've certainly picked out Leighton Clarkson and Jamie McGrath as well when we were speaking last night, but it was a first half that just was not fluid in any shape or form, and I'm really surprised that Barry Robson thought we dominated the first 35-40 minutes.
Absolutely mental. I've read quotes of some of his post-match comments, but I haven't brought myself to actually listen to it.
Don't bother then.
Yeah, was there last night, got a cold now, so I don't think I need to make myself feel any worse, really. I don't know. I suppose the starting 11 worked against Ross County, but we saw problems against Clyde, and I was more in favour of us starting with that side, but we did highlight the fact that there is going to be width problems, and that was very evident. First 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe went fine, went for a pie, couldn't even get the macaroni and chorizo pie. Came back, and it was just about shite from there on out, to be honest. I spent a lot of time getting the balls wide to the full-backs, when then they just had simply nothing ahead of them, which meant they then had to turn back inside back to the centre-backs, which then meant moans and groans, but it would have been moans and groans anyway if they just punted it down the line because there was no fucker there. And that's the real issue. And it's crazy that he's gone this, I don't know, when you could see that it's clearly not working with sort of two centre mids out wide, sort of as a inside left, inside right, it felt like. From back in the day, and it just so slow. Like Nicky Devlin getting the ball fuck all ahead of him, or Polvara got the ball out wide. Nicky Devlin taking far too long to get outside him. One particular occasion, he barely tried to get outside him, and then we lost the ball, and then he barely tried to get back. And it was just an abysmal showing sort of all round. And when all the problems are there and we didn't make the changes either to help to resurrect them, which we'll come on to later on, you just worry, don't you? Yet at the same time, we're not really surprised, are we?
And I think that last point there is what is kind of damning of where we are just now. None of us are surprised at the fact we didn't make the glaringly obvious changes. None of us are surprised that we ended up conceding yesterday. And there's maybe even just a sense of no real frustration. It's a sense of, well, we're back where we were after we lost to Kilmarnock and we papered that over with a victory over Hearts. We're back where we were after we lost to St Mirren. We papered that over with victory over Ross County. We're just going in this vicious circle that seems to be papered over by fortuitous wins. And to be honest, I said, I wasn't getting carried away after the victory up in Dingwall. People criticised us for having that opinion. As we've said, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but it feels like that victory in Dingwall especially did do a lot of papering over the cracks. Clyde was a very favourable Scottish Cup draw despite being away and everyone wanting to remind us of the past. So again, 2 games really to start the month that was very much job done. And as the musical box has said in his comments, been on screen for a while, we're not playing like a quality side. We've got lots of passing for no real end product. And Johnny Main, probably for his best and his blood pressure's best, not being in the co-host seat tonight, stating the glaringly obvious as well, with no width, no urgency, and no quality as well. Because you mentioned the kind of the points on the right hand side with Devlin and Polvara. There was times where we maybe did have that bit of urgency from Dante Polvara trying to start a counter-attack, but instead of freeing Leighton Clarkson with a pass, he wanted that 1 or 2 extra touches and then turned back into trouble or got dispossessed. Or when we tried to play the pass, we tried to play a fancy pass instead of keeping it simple. There's just, I said today to one of the guys at work, I don't see any identity with this Aberdeen team right now. And I saw someone earlier, here it is, John Smith saying, Robson's got 2 formations. One is shite and doesn't work, and the other he hates, even though it does work. And almost like when it came to appointing Barry Robson, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place with what formation we play right now.
A little bit. I mean, I think it's a very fair point about sort of no style, no width, no urgency, no quality. So much sort of dilly-dallying about. Okay, fine, controlled possession, but there's no point in doing so if you're not going to do fucking anything with it. And the amount of times, Gartenman or Rubizic or one of the fullbacks just dilly-dallying on the ball, maybe some space to run into, they walk into it, and it's just very, very frustrating. In fact, I think we should get the plane out that Hearts previously hired. No style, no bottle, Robson out, I reckon. We'll have to change a few letters, so it's okay.
Yeah, we're nearly there. Who's got a pilot's license that can fly that? Tomorrow. Wait, when is it? Oh, yeah, we could just do it at Tynecastle, I suppose.
That shows how little you care. When is it? I don't know.
But I think it just shows the apathy that is amongst the support right now. I think even if you look at, when we were talking last night, you were mentioning the game coming up midweek and Tuesday about how you can't even be bothered attending the home game against Dundee. I think you only need to look at the way the club have now gone to advertise the Bonnie Rig Rose Cup game. The fact it's immediately on sale, £15, which I think we'd said 10, kind of I lent towards 15. They've used 6 loyalty points. That's how desperate the club are getting, that they're increasing the loyalty point allocation from 4 to 6 to try and draw in a crowd. It really feels we're clutching, but I can't help but feel we're almost getting to the stage where that game is going to be either an interim manager or a new manager's first game in charge.
Well, let's hope they've had a couple of games in charge prior to then. I mean, the fact it's 6 loyalty points shows you how desperate, as you say. However, mental that Clyde on a Friday night in shite weather, only 4. So it doesn't really add up, does it?
No, it doesn't. And another thing, kind of before we get into the second half, whilst I'm still on my rant just now, and it was a point made by Stephen at my work today, and he said, go and look back at the fixtures from the first set of league games, so our opening 10 games, although we can't include Dundee because we're yet to play them, and look how the trend flows from those games to the times we played the teams twice. So we've played Celtic twice, lost both. Same with Killian Hibs, lost both. We've played St Johnstone twice, drawn twice. Played St Mirren twice, drawn the first one, which we were fortunate to do, obviously last minute penalty, followed the second game by defeat. So we're being the exact same or getting worse. There's a few anomalies there, of course, with Livingston having drawn on the opening day and then beating them, Rangers being the other anomaly as well. But we're not a side that's improving when we're playing the same team. Again, Hearts, you could argue an anomaly, but no team ever wins that away fixture. Bodes well for this weekend. So Barry Robson, there's a lot been talk around him and the group of players. I still maintain this is a good squad, but is Barry getting the best out of them just now?
No, he's certainly not.
Moving
I'm
on.
beginning to think that it's maybe not such a good squad as we thought. Like players that came in and looked the business, or so well, we were led to believe, sort of like Jensen and Gartenman. You're now beginning to question. Jensen coming on yesterday, pretty poor. Likewise, Angus McDonald I remember him just simply rushing a clearance when he had so much time to take the ball down. Harsh on him, I know, because he's not played a lot of football and arguably he should have.
The,
But
the other thing on the Angus substitution was it entirely necessary to even bring him on at that point? 10 minutes to go. Could you have brought on a more forward thinking player?
no, we shouldn't have done that. We should have stuck exactly where we were with five at the back. It was mental that he brought on Angus McDonald. Okay, whatever. Rubic going off. I mean, he's probably maybe the best of a bad bunch at the back, perhaps you could say. However, not using that opportunity, which is the perfect opportunity, because he's probably just about the only defender you could have taken off, really. Him going off injured and bringing on a straight swap when you could have brought on Morris or Duke. You could have adjusted. You could have brought on both. In fact, it then ruled out the opportunity to bring on anyone else at all because we'd used all three stoppages.
Yeah.
Insane decision making with 10 minutes to go away at St Johnstone, who, to be fair to them, I've got to give credit to them. We've been very down on Aberdeen. Very good, deserved to win, arguably. I said to you in the latter stages of the game yesterday, we're making such good niggly fouls to stop the counter attack and just taking bookings for the team, not conceding even a chance. And they were decent, and it's not what you expect out of a Craig Levein side. I mean, they arguably could have won that game 2-0. If you think about it, Brother Beaton really helped us out with a dodgy penalty, disallowed their goal probably incorrectly as well. And I suppose they hit the post too. So it could have been 3-0, actually, and we couldn't really have had that many qualms.
No, exactly, and I think had that shot from Max Kurievski gone in at the end, probably couldn't complain. And Paul Donaldson, speaking about the previous manager Stephen Glass when sacked, 9th place, 25 played, 29 points, 1.16 points per game. Goodwin 7th place, 23 played, 29 points, 1.2 6 points per game. Barry Robson, we're currently 7th place, 19 played, 23 points, 1.21 points per game so far this season. Very much in sacking territory if the last two are anything to go by. And given 3 of our next 4 games are against the current top 3 in the league, 2 of those games being away from home as well, and our record against Celtic is atrocious as it is, it doesn't bode well for picking up a bundle of points coming up. And Dundee have shown this season that they're very much no mugs either. I wanted to go back to a point because it's kind of in the notes as well from Pedro73. What has he been working on at the training ground? He said for weeks he was looking forward to the winter break to get the team on the training pitch. And even ahead of the game last night, we also had an extra day, if you want, on St Johnstone, given we played Friday night. They played Saturday afternoon and, of course, lost. We spoke about St Johnstone probably having that added incentive, being the wounded animal of going out in a cup upset. Maybe some might have viewed that as. We didn't take advantage of it. And going back to the point from Pedro73 is it doesn't look like we're a team that's working on much at the training ground, other than the fancy set piece that we tried in the opening 10 minutes that was a terrible ball in from Jamie McGrath.
I really can't see what. There's no sort of clear like kind of passages of play. You'd have thought perhaps if we're going to go with this sort of narrow five in midfield, then we would certainly have patterns of play for when the ball goes out to the wing backs in order to give us that width. We're not seeing any of that whatsoever. I mean, certainly when it came late on in the game, once it'd gone 1-1, the panic in terms of giving long balls to Johnny Hayes and Leighton Clarkson, probably two of the three smallest players. Maybe Daniel Phillips was slightly smaller than one of them, who, by the way, had a very good game. It's absolute lunacy. How it really is. And there's nothing, you can't even really see what we're trying to do. If we were trying to do something and it wasn't coming off and maybe we'd been unlucky, then you could perhaps accept it to certain degrees. But you come away from that game, and how many games can you think about this season? You come away from it going, I don't even know what the fuck we were trying to do there.
And I guess as well as also, what the fuck were we doing in trying to see the game out? We're going to come on to the second half, and criticism rightly will come Barry Robson's way once again in terms of game management and failure to see the game out. And as the musical box again says, an indicator of the team mentality is how many times the ball is passed forward only to have the ball passed straight back. We do that a lot, emphasis on lot there. And I think, again, watching the game last night, you could see that being pretty much our style of play. St Johnstone were fluid in terms of their counter-attacking, and as you mentioned, kind of the overlaps in our kind of slowness of doing that. Maybe, as you say, unexpected from a Craig Levein side was how direct and how quick they were.
I mean, I suppose you can expect a Craig Levein side to be direct, but the sort of quality that they did it with, I don't know, maybe it does surprise me. I've not seen St.
Well, I think maybe
Johnstone
also we're giving Craig Levein the credit. I think considering he takes more of a back seat and Andy Kirk does a lot of the coaching, maybe we should be giving him the credit, because for those that have watched his Brecon side in the Highland League last season will know that they like to attack at pace.
Yeah, I mean, they surprised me, certainly, and as you mentioned, they were sort of that wounded animal having gone out to Airdrie. We did wonder whether confidence would be particularly low after that, or be looking to bounce back, and you certainly saw the character amongst them as well in terms of wanting to bounce back. And then the character we saw sort of from Aberdeen worried me completely. I mean, the first half, Kellerus telling the fans to calm down when the fans were booing John Beaton, first of all. And actually, you know what? Maybe Kellerus was right, because Beaton was our best player on the day. And I think Graham Shinney was doing the same again, just giving it the relaxed kind of thing. And then if you're going to do those things, you need to have a bit about you. And none of them did, to be honest. I mean, maybe Connor Barron, I think maybe the only one, perhaps, and Miofsky, I guess, for taking his penalty well, with kind of pass marks. Other than that, even then, we've probably been kind. And then for Kellerus to then go and cock it up in the way he did. First of all, with Graham Carey, good strike. Goal shouldn't have been disallowed. And Kellerus falling down like a sack of tatties and getting a hand to the ball, getting beat at his near post. And then to later on, really, really cock up a cross that he probably doesn't even need to come for. Baffling. Absolutely baffling.
Baffling indeed. And Adam Heddle saying we didn't deserve anything. We had 2 VAR calls going our way, which was harsh in both those calls. I think I agree with that, because I think had both those calls gone against us, we'd be sitting here absolutely lamenting VAR and how it's shite and how the game shouldn't be re-reffed. He makes another point about going to a back 5 to defend, which we'll come on to shortly. But I want to come on to Kel Roos. Paul Donaldson is probably one of the only people that I've seen actually defending Kel, or Kelly, as Saints TV kept calling him last night. He says, I've seen folk blaming Kel Roos, but it was a very poor all-round performance, so don't think the keeper can be singled out for mistakes at the goal and the disallowed one. I'm going to agree to disagree, Paul. And as I said to you last night, Callum, mainly because the fact how he was bumping his gums pre-Clyde about how his job is just as important as the rest of the team in tight games, to remain focused, to remain concentrated at all times, because it's his job if the games are tight. and in the balance to keep the team in the game. But on 2 occasions, he did his best to absolutely chuck the game. Is it a good strike from Graham Kerry? Yes. Is it a foul on Jamie McGrath? Not for me. Should Roos be beating at his near post? Absolutely not. The fact when he kind of saves the ball, I think he's even behind the line and pushes it into the side netting. I think any keeper of any quality, whether you want to claim Roos as a good quality keeper or not, should not be getting beaten like that at their near post.
No, absolutely not. And then at the opposite end, I was watching Mitov just kind of with jealousy. In fact, he looks really good with his feet as
Mm-hmm.
well. If Roos is to leave and not sign a new contract, then I'd absolutely be delighted with him coming in. If we can attract the likes of St Johnstone players
Yeah.
by the end of the season, that is. Um, I don't know. I don't. I suppose Kellerus, there was a few suspect moments prior to his injury. Then he came back with Jay Horter providing competition, and he looked like a new man. And then all of a sudden this season, at times he's bailed us out certainly, and he did make a very good save. I think
Almost
possibly I can't
straight
remember. If it was,
after.
yeah, almost straight after, and credit to him for that. But at the same time, it kind of just makes me more annoyed in that, like, why can he do that, pull off an
Mm-hmm.
excellent save, and then just have two moments of madness, it would seem.
Yeah, and I also agree with this point as well. If it was the first time this season Roast had got beaten at his near post, then fair enough. But as the musical box says, I think that's at least the third time, and it isn't the first time he's done that. It is probably a weak area of his game. But so is the rush of blood in terms of coming off the line for the second goal. What is he? Why? I genuinely still do not know why he's coming off his line. If he stays on his line like he tends to do 9 times out of 10, the right back heads the ball back into Kellaroos. And how the fuck have St Johnstone found an Israeli right back that's actually half decent? Imagine if we actually gave Ordadi a game, he could have been half decent. We'll
Maybe.
never know. But yeah, St Johnstone have found a half decent Israeli right back who popped up and got his first goal on debut. And yeah, I just really don't know what Kel's doing for that goal. Should never have been coming for that ball in the first place. And the fact when he does come, gets absolutely nowhere near it. Because I was always told as a keeper, if you're going to come, you have to be certain you're getting the ball. Otherwise, you're going to get the blame if the ball ends up in the back of the net.
Yeah, it was very good. And for like the St John's player that won the header, it wasn't a particularly good header. Sort of
No,
sandwiched between two players. He just got something on it. And the fact Roos came for it meant there was half a chance of it going in because he made
yeah.
contact. And Roos absolutely nowhere near it. But as you say, if he just stays on his line, and he could easily make a catch, even let alone pull off a save. But it wasn't the only time that we looked terrible from crosses, and it was mainly from the defensive perspective, really. Um, it sort of looked like we'd never seen a cross in our life, and we had no idea how to deal with them in terms of defensively. And then likewise in the box, going forward too, I guess. It's just I don't know where we're meant to really go from here, because as much as the tactics and things like that are clearly a bit of an issue, you've got to question the players as well, because when it's instances like that, I mean, is there any guarantee that if things don't go their way under a new manager, should that happen, that they're not just going to go back to the same error of their ways?
And I guess this is going to start turning it into the kind of question mark about, are the players playing for Robson? Has he lost the dressing room when we start seeing examples of that, as you allude to? And question marks are going to be raised around his ability to use certain players or lack of using certain players. Again, when we look at last night, and for as much as the award or sorry disallowment of the first St Johnstone goal was soft, the penalty was that we were awarded was just as soft. And again, as I said, you being there, Callum, did you even appeal for the penalty? Did you suspect it may be a penalty, or were you just, well, we've fucked up another opportunity here?
Well, I peeled for the sort of slight half kick on Rubezic, just more out of, I'll give it a go, I guess, and the fact it was probably Rubezic as well, so I just wanted him to win a penalty.
I think that's
However,
what the penalty was for, though.
well, I don't really know, and there wasn't very much communication for it otherwise, but regardless, having looked at it back, I think it was on the Sky Sports highlights, which didn't make it very clear either. Both instances, whether it be the handball or the little trip or whatever, very soft either way, isn't it? And consider ourselves very lucky to have got that penalty, which, by the way, I had no confidence we were going to score. So I was very much relieved when Bojan stuck it away. That's the word I'm looking for.
There we go.
Third time of asking.
But as was pointed out by Derek Ledingham on Twitter, and I messaged you this last night, it was Barry Robson was in the middle of getting 2 subs ready. Esther Sokler and Johnny Hayes were ready to come on, and they were away to come on, I think, assuming that was going to be a goal kick. Yet we tuck the penalty away, we go 1-0 up, and Barry Robson sticks with the decision to bring on Johnny Hayes, take on Esther Sokler, and revert to a back 5. Now, going back to Barry Robson's press conference, I don't want to nitpick too much at what he says, but he fucking makes it easy as anything to nitpick. He mentions about changing the structure, and when you're going into a game 1-0 up, you shouldn't change the structure too much, stick with what you've got, and see the game out. He changed the fucking structure of the team. He literally did it himself. He changed what was working to something that has barely worked for us all season. And as soon as we did it, we looked even more clueless than we had prior. And when you're bringing on Johnny Hayes with half an hour to go, given some of the other players we've got on the bench, I mean, no offense, Johnny, but I'm really concerned at what that means for certain other players.
Yeah, certain other players that we've paid transfer fees for as well. It's like he just, like, they were already, stripped and ready to go. And he turned around and he was just like, oh, fuck, can't be arsed making them putting their stuff back on. Just go on anyway. Lunacy to think about changing it to the 5 at the back at 0-0. I don't know if it's worse, to be honest, or slightly better, the fact that we were 1-0 up and potentially had something to hold on to. My only thinking was, when I was trying to make myself feel better, was like, our only width has been from fullback. So in theory, the wing backs will start higher up the park and it'll give us a better chance, of making things happen. Nope.
But it's this exact same as the Pout game. He makes the subs too early. You go 1-0 up and you change it straight away. Why not keep it 5-10 minutes, see how St Johnstone react to going to 1-0 down, then make the changes? If St Johnstone are going gung-ho trying to get an equaliser, you adjust accordingly, take on Morris, take on Duke, even still keep taking on Esther Sokler, and use guys, with actual pace or, wingers, and exploit the pace in behind, because, that would be a novel idea, Barry.
What the fuck are wingers at this point? Just absolute madness. And you've got Duke sitting on the bench as well. You're wearing his match worn Frankfurt top. That's the most action it's seen in a wee while. A Duke shirt. I don't know. And I suppose also likewise when McDonald comes on, you could also perhaps throw on Shaden Morris even for Nicky Devlin. Like, just say maybe, just as a right midfielder, as that wing back, but he's got a little bit more about him in terms of pace and directness going forward. Okay, we know the end product maybe still has, room for improvement, but I can't understand some of the changes. And like, I mean, we've been booting the ball up to Andy Considine, Gordon, and whoever else they had back there, I can't even remember. And it's just absolute meat and drink for them over Miovski's head. And then Sokler's not really that type of player either, who's going to go and batter into them and sort of give them any worries aerially. And then we resorted to punting it to the wee guys for no reason.
Yeah, and I guess you're mentioning the subs. I understand in a sense why Barry Robson brings Angus MacDonald on. Centre back for a centre back. Was it needed at the time? I agree. I don't think so. But the other change as well. You mentioned there about the Angus MacDonald change kind of meaning that we had no more subs to use. So we only used 4 instead of our allotted 5. Was the Richard Jensen for Jack McKenzie change. I didn't get that one either, because unless Jack was injured, why make that change? And again, also affected us later on in the game because you've wasted a sub, leaving us with only 2. It didn't feel necessary at the time.
No, and Jensen's not really someone I've been particularly impressed with, sort of in recent games, because it's been a while since we played a lot of games, as well. So I don't really know, and like in terms of being comfortable on the ball, the centre backs don't look anywhere near that really, arguably, other than Rubicic, which is mental. He went on a nice mazy run before probably throwing himself to the ground, and he's arguably performing the best of the 3 that we'd usually see start. And I don't think we expected that from his first few games.
Yeah, well, the other thing about Richard Jensen is, of course, he's our player, and we're starting Stefan Garteman instead. And look, I'm neither here nor there on Stefan at the minute, but it kind of goes back to the issue that we had last season, and kind of goes against with what Barry was saying last season about wanting to play players that are kind of committed to the club, because we're filled with loan players. Yet one of the players that is committed in terms of his contract can't get a game just now ahead of a loan player. However, given Ruby went off injured, it looked a sore one in real time. But I think obviously a positive is the fact he managed to walk off the pitch. It opens the door for both Angus and Richard Jensen to claim a starting place over the next couple of games, because those games are coming thick and fast.
Wouldn't be surprised if it was both of them going into Hearts. 5 at the back will be so back for Tynecastle.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he will be doing anything and everything he can to protect his job. And if it means a back five is what we're going to see come Saturday.
5-4-1, anyone?
I was just say 5-5-0.
Would be as well, because the amount of times we're just lumping the ball up to Miovski, when even if he wins a header, there's just nobody near him in any sort of support. It'd be as well just taking him out of there and plugging another one in midfield.
We spoke about St Johnstone hitting the woodwork towards the end of the game. We also had a quite good opportunity. Esther Sokler, similar, feels like he always has good opportunities in injury time. I've got PTSD to his Frankfurt chance with that miss last night. Watching it back behind the goal, why I can't help but feel he is looking where Miovski is and trying to square that ball back across goal. You're a striker, get that header aimed down into the bottom corner. I was going to say on target. He got it on target, but fuck me, like Graham Shinney earlier when he had the long bursting run from halfway to the edge of the box and he passed it into Mitov's hands. Another tame attempt to goal from Aberdeen, and kind of just summed up most of our game yesterday was that Sokler chance.
Yeah, I mean, on Graham Shinney's chance, he did all the hard work.
Yeah.
Getting by their midfielders, holding them off, and then just the tamest shot you've ever seen with his right foot, which I cannot understand how players can't strike a ball with both feet. You are being paid thousands of pounds a week. How have you made it that far? Miggy Almiron's another one, which just don't even get me started on him. No, I like him. And yeah, the Sokler one has to do better. Head it into the ground a little bit more, even just to give a bit of a problem for Mitov. I mean, all he really had to do was pick the penalty out of the back of the net and stop a Nicky Devlin cross that looked sort of similar to the Liam Scales one, but from the other side, except he actually dealt with it, unlike Alan McGregor. So sign Mitov up.
And I think this is also a fair point, and I did kind of think this as well, was, as Pedro says, I don't think Esther gets enough games. He's lacking sharpness in the box. Given games, I think he is a player. And yeah, probably a lot of these strikers do need, enough game time to have that sharpness for those split-second opportunities, and Esther's not getting it. Another tweet I saw last night, and again sent to you, and we were going to discuss on the show, came from a Red Point of View fan account on Twitter, speaking about the apathy that's kind of swept the Aberdeen support in full, really, after last night. worst part of that tonight is even if you win, it's so what? Feels that the team is going nowhere. Kind of really sums up everything kind of spot on. That was just a couple of the lines from the tweet itself, but sums up the feeling I think most, well, certainly us having. There's a lot of you watching this live tonight, a lot of you commenting your thoughts as well. Probably sums up the general feeling come full time yesterday.
Yeah, probably. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've been absolutely delighted with 3 points said prior in the preview. I don't even care if how we get it. If we get 3 points, I'll be delighted. Given how our track record down there and how poor we've been just in general, I suppose.
Mm.
I do understand that, but at the same time, if we got 3 points coming up the road, I would have been bouncing off the roof of the car. But I do certainly understand the point when we're putting in performances like that. Okay, the 3 points would be nice, but it's like the whole of the 90 minutes just not enjoyable whatsoever. And we go to football to be entertained, to distract us from whatever shite we've got going on in our life. And if they're spending our hard-earned money as well at that point too,
Mhm.
and that's the type of shite that's getting served up, it's not on, is it?
Yeah, and I think my disappointment as well is obviously we're waiting to speak to a couple of people from the club, and they'd said that we know they want a couple of positive results to come on next week, and I think we can kiss goodbye to that interview next week, Callum, as well. We're going to struggle to hit the target that was set, based on last night's performance anyway.
No, can't see that happening. I said to you last night, there's no chance because we're not going to win at Hearts. It's more actually a
No.
matter of how many are we going to lose by. We're a bit disastrous against Dundee. However, came back excellently to win that. I'm sure they'll be buoyed by that. And we simply can't. There's any point in doing any more preview to this? We can't play at Tynecastle. It's a disaster. We're going to lose. How about
E-
that?
Exactly. Neither team can win that away fixture. And I guess the question is Saturday D-Day for Barry Robson? Does he simply have to win to keep himself in a job? Does a point keep him in a job? Or does it even matter what happens on Saturday? There's so many fans that were maybe sitting on the fence have jumped to the other side now.
From the Football Monitoring Board perspective, I would suspect not losing by 3 will probably be enough to keep him in the job. No, I think a point would probably be enough, and plus a point at Tynecastle most of the time would be a pretty good result. Doesn't really help us all that much. So I don't know. I have a feeling that I would be happy with the point because I just expect us to lose 3-0, but it's not enough for me to be like, yeah, let's give him more time. However, I suspect those at the club might feel different.
Yeah, I think as well. Robson's not going to walk from the job. That's for sure. Despite whatever pressure comes his way, it's so sad that we're both sitting here probably saying we would be happy with a point because we're that far behind Hearts in the race for third already. We're not even at the end of January, and I feel third is already gone.
We're not in the race for third. If they beat us, they're 20 points ahead of us in
Is it?
January. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's as much as that now because obviously we picked up a point
Okay, maybe
yesterday.
it's 19 points. Forgive me. Oh, fuck, it's back on.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm still very much after last night. I'm very much looking over my shoulder, based on the run of fixtures we've got coming up, as well. But you look at the game coming up on Saturday, and it feels like Barry Robson is using up his 9 lives this season. I mentioned the games earlier in the season where we papered over the cracks with victories over both Hearts and Ross County. So that's 2 of his 9 lives saved. It very much feels like Saturday is that third, and could it be 3 and out for Barry Robson? Look, I didn't think we would be sitting here speaking about the manager going, but the apathy amongst the support right now, that tweet that we read out, from Red point of view, the other kind of sentence in that tweet was everything feels kind of pointless right now. So again, touching on the game on Saturday, win, lose or draw, we're still stuck with Barry Robson.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think it would be 3 strikes and he's out. Although I suppose, I guess Goodwin got those 3 games, although things were pretty poor prior. Interesting from Pedro73, and knowing us, it would be quite typical that we'll win that and then probably lose to Dundee on the Tuesday. It does sort of add up. And Kaiser 1903 saying, unless we're in serious relegation strife, Robson will be here for the season, it looks like. And if he was going to be here for this season, it would be nice if we got some new additions to sort of freshen things up a bit. However, 25th of January, at the time we're live, fuck all. Absolutely fuck all. Vicente Pessoa's gone out on loan. Nobody's really surprised by that, but it is a baffling case, isn't it?
I've updated the calendar for those interested.
And I tell you what, McDonald as well, he's been linked earlier in the window too, so maybe there's still time for that. Oh, dear.
But as Can't Be Bothered says, do you think the lack of transfer activity is because the board aren't sure about Robson? Maybe, but if they aren't sure about Robson and are going to get rid of him in the next couple of days, we're stuck with what we've got. And like I said, I don't think we've got a bad squad. I just don't think we're getting the best out of this squad, and I'm putting that at the manager's door personally. But any new manager or interim is not going to have any time to add anybody they would like to the squad. So it feels, with days to go, what we have is what we're going to work with, unless some club comes in with an audacious bid to try and steal anybody away.
That would really just make things so much better, wouldn't it? I mean, oh dear, that's a terrifying thought given how bad we've been. If someone comes in and takes one of the few good players we've got this season, Boyamiowski, I'm looking at you. And a good point from How Do 1% Govern 99%. New additions, haha, they won't play anyway. Good point. I mean, we've got, players sitting on the bench that we signed in the summer or recently and spent decent fees on and not even getting off the bench when, we've been pretty measly away at St Johnstone. I think measly is maybe being generous as well.
Mm-hmm. And Standing Free since 1903 says, is the FMB watching? Well, if they are watching, we were going to be hearing about the January strategy next week, but it doesn't look like we're going to be hearing about that.
There is one.
Well, allegedly. So it'll be interesting when we do catch up with the club to hear what the strategy was for this month.
If we do after this.
Yeah, I know. Well, it could be a few months at this rate till we catch up with them. I mean, I think it's quite safe to say what the feeling is like going into to Saturday's game. You mentioned the fact that Hearts will be buoyed by the fact that they came back from 2-0 down against Dundee to win. Shankland will, I'm sure, be motivated himself despite going on his campaign of being top scorer despite missing penalties. Yutara Oda, who's caused us problems in the past, scoring midweek. Alan Forrest out of nowhere has come on to a decent game. The only blessing for us is they still look pretty shite defensively. But, I mean, folk in glass houses still shouldn't throw stones.
No, they should not. They have looked pretty suspect defensively, which is encouraging. If I had any faith in us to create decent chances, I suppose at Easter Road we lost 2-0. We definitely did create a lot of chances, enough chances to probably win the game, and didn't. You would hope that were we to create chances for the likes of, well, I say the likes of Miovski, and maybe Jamie McGrath at Tynecastle, you'd hope that they'll take them this time. However, I don't know. I don't feel confident in any way, shape, or form. And some of my best pals are Hearts fans, so they could really compile the misery, which I'm not looking forward to. Just thank God I'm not actually going and helping my girlfriend move up to Aberdeen. So that'll be nice at least. I'll just pretend nothing else happening on Saturday and have a lovely time instead. However, it would actually be nice if we could, get some results, because I'm not enjoying any of this. I'm not enjoying being miserable in the car, listening to My Chemical Romance and Green Day. And I'm not enjoying these rants, particularly when I've got a cold, because I'd like to just be like, we won a game, it's good, and then just be done with it. But no.
Yeah, Phil Mayer's got a lot to live up to in the co-host seat. When me and him sit down on Sunday after the game, and I guess the result and outcome of the result, I'm looking at the football monitoring board for this, will depend if that show is broadcast live on Sunday evening or pre-recorded for release on Monday. Graham Rate makes a point in regard to Robson's future. The end of his point is about it's only a few months before season tickets go on sale. I actually looked back at when this season's season ticket information came out, and it was at the beginning of March. So we're really only about 6 weeks away from probably finding out the season ticket prices. I know you're eager to find out if student prices are included, but it's not exactly the run of form you're wanting to be carrying going into your season tickets being released, especially if, worst case, there was a price increase on them.
Oh, I don't think they'd be able to deal with the backlash after that. If I know, they probably wouldn't care, and I know that us idiots would turn up regardless. However, if you are listening, Mr. Burrows or anyone alike, I'm sorry about everything I've said. Please give us student prices. Thank you. That would be nice.
Well, we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, in terms of Saturday, I think from an Aberdeen point of view, in terms of team news, I guess we'll just wait and see what Robson has to come out and say tomorrow in his presser for Rubezic being fit or not. I'm also interested to see what he has to say on Vinny leaving. As you mentioned, Vinny's gone off to FC Emmen for in the Erste Divisie. They're currently mid-table, sitting in 10th. So he's gone on a season-long loan for the rest of the season. I can't remember, is he out of contract at the end of the season?
I've got a feeling it's until 2025, but bear with me as I check. Whilst I point out, Vicente Bissauin, one of the few players, along with Jeffrey de Vischer, who will have played for both FC Emmen and Aberdeen Football Club. So I hope you enjoyed that statistic.
Do not say we do not provide you with valuable information, because that will 100% be a quiz question in years to come. And
Yeah,
who
I thought
said
that was
you
pretty
don't
good.
contribute much to this podcast, Callum?
I know, that's about the only sort of research I'll do. Just, contract expires. Apparently, oh no, it's 2026, not even 2025,
All right.
2026.
Well,
So it might be a few more loans, you would feel like, before they got rid of him, or maybe a new manager comes in and gives him a chance. But then there's the concern that that's two managers that have now binned him in January back to the Netherlands.
yeah, I was going to say he could be on a Polvara redemption arc, or he could just be packing his bags, never to be seen again, and Sticky Toffee pudding sales in the Northeast plummet after that news. As I mentioned as well, Bonnie Rig, the cup game has been priced at £15 for adults, £5 for under 12s. The upper deck will be closed for that game. The club putting them on sale already. We've discussed Vinny leaving. Could it be the end of his career? And could Saturday, Callum, be the end of Barry Robson's career?
I don't think so. I think even with a defeat, providing it's not as embarrassing as last season's defeat, then he'll still be here.
Do you think though? Do you think though? Because you say as long as it's not an embarrassing defeat, but I think any defeat will not be met well by those that travel
Oh
down
God,
on
no.
Saturday, and then you're then putting loads of pressure on both Robson and the squad for a midweek rearranged game against Dundee. Um, I
Oh
mean, that's
God.
a load of pressure on top of the league table putting pressure on, I'm sure.
It's a lot of pressure, but I agree with Johnny. If we lose on Saturday, nothing will happen. However, I would hate to think if we lose at Tynecastle and then proceed to lose to Dundee, how bad it would be at Pittodrie for the probably reduced crowd anyway. That might be there.
Well, the only thing I will say is if we do lose those two games, it gives Dave the perfect opportunity to get live in front of the Sky cameras and get the crocodile tears out. And there's your opportunity for Barry Robson to be seen leaving, prime time. Well, it's not really prime time here, but it might be in America.
Maybe. I wonder what sort of advertising board we could get Robson to climb over. What would what thing? I was looking. What would be the most interesting advertising board for him to climb over?
Leave your thoughts in the comment below. That's definitely one that we could put on. Some of them will probably not be able to read out the way
Oh no.
folk come up with. But like you said, Callum, look, we both don't want to be sitting here and we'll probably get criticised for being overly negative on this podcast. But I mean, fuck me, if anyone can find anything positive from last night and looking ahead to the weekend, then feel free to let us know and come on next time to contribute a bit of positivity, because it's fucking hard to be positive about this football club right now.
Yeah, I mean, we pay our money. We've got to make ourselves feel better a little bit, and maybe just getting it all out is exactly the way. We wouldn't have to do it if we occasionally every now and then got 3 points in games you'd expect us to.
Well, that's very true. And 3 points this weekend would be highly unexpected, but equally welcomed, and certainly lift the mood going into a home double header. Because, as I said, the game against Dundee feels like a bit of a ticking time bomb right now for the way that both the crowd will feel. Obviously, the last time out at home against St Mirren didn't exactly go to plan, so pressure on there. But let's see what the weekend and then Tuesday brings. It's going to be brutal. Paul Donaldson says if they have the Ashvale board on the roof of the Merkland stand, then over that one. Well, what's the trampoline company that got that replaced the Soul Spirit Tradition banner on the RDS? Could we get a big fuck off trampoline for him to bounce out over the stadium on?
No, that would be, or we could just get another one on the other side, so he just constantly is doing this forever.
Yeah, and he's just got to stay and watch the new manager come in and improve this squad massively.
Well, I don't know if that'll happen.
Well, I mean, it's really not hard at this moment in time, because things just aren't improving. But
Well, I would say, however, we have thought that twice before so far. And what's that thing about Einstein and sort of insanity, expecting the same results, expecting doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So maybe we just need to accept that we're just going to be bad forever now.
Is this really the price we've had to pay for finally getting into the European group stages? A season of suffering domestically and just clinging on to cup competitions to give us some glimmer of hope. Because do you really think the FMB might cling on to the fact we beat Bonnie Rig to keep Barry in a job?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I suppose the one saving grace is Hearts were pretty bad when they had Europe next season. So maybe it'll just be a constant sort of back and forth where they finish third, qualify for Europe, do shite in the league whilst they're in Europe, then we qualify, and then just vice versa, just forever until Hibs or someone finally decides to get their act together. But at least Hibs are making signings, I guess, to try and improve.
Yeah, very true. And then one final point for tonight, I guess, is probably for kind of discussion when the inevitable happens. Who trusts Cormac to find a replacement given his track record so far?
No, not me.
Yeah, no pressure, lads. When the time comes, hopefully it's not an interim manager that does well and we're forced to give them the job and keep in this other vicious cycle that we've got ourselves into.
It's going to be a nightmare when Stuart Duff gets us third place this season, I tell you.
Well, actually, as Lee Seymour points out, I've just forgotten Curtis Main's returning to Pittodrie on Tuesday night. Wow, if ever there's a writing on the wall for ending a manager's time at Pittodrie.
Joe Shaughnessy long throw, Curtis Main on the end of it. Come on.
Come on down, Tony Doherty running up the sideline like Jose Mourinho Old Trafford.
I'm on board with that, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'd enjoy it.
Well, there we go. We've written the script. It just needs to be carried out. I think that's a quite funny place to end it.
I think we've gone mental throughout the course of this episode.
I mean, if you don't go mental watching this Aberdeen's team, then fair play.
Yeah.
But thank you very much to everybody that's joined in this Thursday night. therapy session live on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. And we nearly touched 100 people watching live with us at points throughout this show. Lots of you commenting below. So if you are still tuned in, please do hit that like button here on YouTube, or if you're catching up as well, it does mean a lot to us. Share the episode with friends if you want to help them get over the midweek result. As I said, Callum will be missing out on Sunday, probably you're the lucky one. And Phil Mayer will be stepping in to look back at what happens at Tynecastle and look ahead to the visit of Dundee to Pittodrie. And then we'll be back in midweek rounding up that game ahead of the visit of Celtic to Pittodrie on Saturday lunchtime. So thank you very much for tuning in. Things can only get better. Until next time,